Hey everyone, Chris Stegall here with MK Partners, and I am joined today by Matt Kaufman. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Chris.
And today we are talking about one of my favorite things, just creative applications of Salesforce. And one of the things that we enjoy doing at work here is taking things that start out as spreadsheets and saying, wait a minute, this would be a lot more dynamic and easy to use and valuable in an org. And so today we're going to take a look at something that Matt whipped up with a focus on events and specifically sessions at events, this time built around Dreamforce. So thanks for joining, Matt.
Of
And
course.
I'm getting your screen pulled up here, but feel free to talk us through sort of what we're looking at today.
Sure. So I'm on the Dreamforce 2023 website. Hopefully this looks familiar to a lot of our viewers. And I love looking at all the different sessions and trying to figure out which ones I want to go to. It is super hard to do. I have a lot of FOMO about going to a session and then realizing while I'm there, oh, I really should have gone to a different one. And what I often will do is create a spreadsheet. And I'll take all this data and I'll put it into a spreadsheet. But it's a little difficult because some of this data doesn't really fit well into a spreadsheet. So I happen to know Shane, so I'll pick on him for this one. So here's a great session, right? So it's talking about AI and B2B commerce, and it looks good. But what you'll notice is it's on the agenda, or there's two sessions basically where they're offering the same talk. And the other thing that could happen if I were to click on Shane or Mike's name here, both of them might be giving other talks. And so really, we're not talking about data that fits too well in a spreadsheet. We could put it in there, but if I wanted to run any analytics or maybe create a pivot table or something like that, it would be a little hard because we really need multiple sheets or multiple tables to keep track of this information. And often when I choose which sessions I go to, I will try to factor in things like, well, is there a Salesforce employee participating in that talk? Or is it a partner? Maybe I'll look at the title of the employee even. And then I will look at things like, okay, is this talk available on multiple days? Because if it is, then I can have a little more flexibility. There might be another talk that I'm interested in Tuesday at 9 a.m. And so then I could say, okay, I'll go see Shane's talk on Wednesday and instead maybe take a cert exam or something like that on Tuesday or vice versa. And so I look at all that information, but it's really hard to do when you're in a flat spreadsheet. And so I, being the kind of guy that plays with Salesforce nonstop, I was like, well, maybe we can move this data into Salesforce instead. And so I just started looking at the screen, figuring out, okay, well, what would my data look like? And we could create a spreadsheet if we wanted to. We could create a spreadsheet and then import that spreadsheet as data and turn that into our objects as metadata, sorry. So obviously we have the title of the talk or the title of the session. We have an abstract. We have the speakers. Like I said, this is where it starts to get into this many-to-many relationships. And then we have the schedule or the times that it's available. And then we could keep track of things like where it's located. Because that's actually another important factor. When I'm putting together my personal agenda, I know it's impossible to go to two sessions, one after the other, if they're located in different places. And so this one here is in Moscone South, which is underground. And if the next session I wanted to go to was in Moscone West on the third floor, or worse, in the Intercontinental, I wouldn't be able to make that. They technically are available in the agenda builder, but it doesn't warn you that you can't make that connection, which is a feature when we book our flights now. Often you'll be told, hey, you can't make that connection. If you're flying through a large airport and you're landing in one terminal or even one end of the terminal, and your next flight is at another terminal or another end, you got to take the little train or shuttle or whatever it may be. You can't make that connection. We don't have that for Dreamforce. It would be a great feature request because I know I've had this experience where there are two places I want to be. And on the agenda, it looks like I can't actually make it there. They're different times, but without enough time between the two to leave the room, leave the building, walk across the street, get through security, and then find the room and get in. Often there's lines and things like that. You end up now sitting outside the room and you miss that whole opportunity. So I want to look at all this information, and I want to basically create an object that corresponds to this session. But then I need to keep track of this additional related data, such as the scheduling or the times. And then because I'm interested in it, I also want to keep track of the participants or the speakers. So I kind of took that, and instead of just doing a spreadsheet with VLOOKUPs and things like that, which I could have done, I'm much more of a graphic person. And so I like to see things in color and be able to click on them, like in Salesforce. I think at this point I'm just spoiled, right? Because I've used Salesforce so much. And so I spinned up a dev org, and this is what we got. So I scraped the Dreamforce website, and we can talk about how I do that. The way I used to do it was to go to the site, scroll down, and then copy the whole thing. I would take the HTML, the whole thing, and paste it into VS Code or some other text editor of your choice, and then start trying to do master places to format it into something like a spreadsheet. And then I could import that into Salesforce using the data loader or the import wizard. It's not fun. It takes a long time. And so instead, for this particular, I don't know if I want to call this a project, but this particular side project, I leveraged some of my web scraping skills, and behind many web-based applications, including websites, there are APIs, and I was able to hit the Dreamforce API, call it, and get data back. And then I used some Apex magic to convert that data, which was in the form of a JSON string or a JSON object, into all of the data in this org that I'm looking at. And so let's go ahead, actually, let's go back to, I should have probably prepared ahead of time. Let's go back and find Shane's talk here. And again, I'm just picking on him because I know him, and hopefully he doesn't mind the free advertising. But AI-powered personalization in B2B commerce. Let's go see if we can find this one. So I actually haven't looked to see if this is in here, but it should be. I'm going to go ahead and do this search in this org. Oh, and look at that. It actually showed up twice. That's interesting. I think I know why.
Is that because there was 2 times for the session?
I think it's because it's 2 times. And my guess is they're 2 different days. In fact, I know they are because we saw it. And the way I scraped the website was to say, get me all of the sessions on day 1, and then now get me all of the sessions on day 2, and then day 3 and day 4. And so it pulled it in multiple times. I did create a unique ID, but I obviously either the data itself has 2 different IDs, or I didn't do it right. We'll find out. So this is the session. We can see here, it actually does show up twice. So obviously my unique ID is not unique enough. And I created a bunch of fields. So some of the things that I'm often interested in, besides the stuff we already talked about, is like the level of that talk, the role, the product, things like that, topics. Usually, there are certain hot topics. This year, I think it's AI. But there's always something that is going to interest me, and so I wanted to pull in that. I also wanted to pull in the length. You can see there. I think they're all in English, or at least primarily in English. But just to be safe that I don't go to a talk that I won't be able to understand, I did bring in language. And then, this is interesting. Participant count. That's a roll-up I created. So I created a roll-up summary field to count the number of participants. I forgot about that. And if we look down, I'll kind of show you. So we have the title, we have the abstract, and then there's this big gobbledygook. And this is a JSON object that represents just this session. So the result of hitting that API is a lot of data. It's not just one record. In that lot of data is essentially a list of records. And I like to take the one record that corresponds to this particular session and put it on here. And I do that for a couple reasons. One, it's a great way to debug. So whenever we do integrations with RESTful web services, we try to store the object that represents the data on the record. And so then I can come in here and try to figure out, wait, what happened? Did something, did my code get a little confused? Did I have a typo, etc.? We can see it here. But the other reason I like to do it, and I know this is really hard to read. In fact, I'm gonna probably put it into another screen to make it easier. The other reason I like to do it is because it's not really the nicest thing to do to scrape someone else's website. In fact, legally, if you're doing it for a hobby, it's not the end of the world, probably, although you still could get in trouble. But like, I can't sell any app that uses this. That would be inappropriate without contacting the provider and saying, hey, I'd like to build an integration with your website. And so by storing it, I don't have to necessarily call and scrape the website again if I want to make a change. I could just parse this data that I've already stored. And so it's a little friendlier. So you could scrape it once, store it, and then start playing with it. Instead of having to call it over and over. That really wouldn't be appropriate. And my guess is if you called it enough, they would start looking into it and saying, hey, who is this person that's trying to scrape our website? Let's block them, or worse, get our attorneys involved. So what I'm going to do is use this website, not affiliated with it at all, but it's a website that I like to use to just make it easier to read on the screen. jasonlintz.com is the name of the website. And what I did is just I took that big gobbledygook and I pasted it into here, and then it formats it nicely so that we can see it better. And so this is the data that represents that one session record. And so we can see it's just a JSON object. And the way that JSON works is there's a key and then a value. And so what that means is this is the label or the name of the field, and this is the value of the field. And what's kind of neat about JSON is that it can have essentially like a related list. So here we can see attributes as a related list. And so it's not just a flat table, it's a complex object. It looks like you're zooming in. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in for you. There we go. We can make it a little easier to read. So it allows you to kind of encapsulate not just a record from one table, but the related lists of that record in the other tables, all in one big object. And then I can parse that. So the session itself has these child records for attributes I turn into multi-select pick lists. But it also has things like, let's go ahead and collapse this, the participants, and we can see here, Shane, and it also has things like times, and we can see here the times. Now there's a lot of stuff in here that I was not interested in. I don't need short month and time. I just needed date time. And there's some stuff here that is not really things I even understand. So I don't even know what attend access means. This correlates to something behind the scenes. Not really my problem. Wait list limit of 15,000. That's insane. Could you imagine having a wait list of 15,000? So I didn't even bother collecting that data. But I was interested in the capacity of the room, and this is amazing. The room's capacity apparently is 40,000. I don't know how that's possible, because that like possibly everybody that's going to Dreamforce, and maybe he's on a keynote stage. But it says Lodge Village and usually in a round table, and that sounds like a small table. So I don't know. I'm not sure. But I still pulled it in, maybe because it'll be streaming. It has that ability, virtual schedule capacity. I don't know. So there's a lot of stuff in here. And what I did was basically write some Apex code to just pick and choose the things I was interested in. And so I picked things out. I picked the time out. I picked the date time, and so on and so forth, and the title and all that stuff. And if I wanted to pick out more, I would just update my code to say, go get something else. Go get this external ID. Go get this code, and so on and so forth. And so that's what this app is. Now, there's some cleanup I definitely can do here. So like, for instance, now that I have confirmed that the app is working, I probably don't need the JSON on the screen. You can see it's like really long. It's not something I'd ever want to show end users. And so I probably should take it off. I can move stuff around. I've already done a little moving. Like you can see, I have a wide section for these bottom fields and short two column sections up here. And I happen to know this person, so I know a little about him. But it would be nice to be able to see more information here on the right. Because like I said, one of the ways I determine if I want to go to a session is based on who's speaking and where they work. I know it sounds terrible to be like judgmental, but I find that sometimes the more official talks often have little snippets of information that I'm more interested in than a talk that's more about like a product that I don't use, right? So let me try to update this real quick. I'm going to update this related list here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click edit object and go to setup. And I'm going to edit the page layout for the session. And I'm just going to edit the related list specifically for participants. And I'm going to add in the job title. And somewhere on here, I think I have the company name. There it is at the top. Sorry about that. I'm actually do it in this order because that makes the most sense to me. I'll add LinkedIn also. We'll see if it works. And then I'm going to take off the JSON because, like I said, at this point, I don't know if I actually need it. I do have it on almost every screen just for debugging, but now that I've kind of seen it, I don't know if I need it. The other thing I sometimes do is I will use field level security so that I, as an administrator, can see it, but all of my end users are not subjected to seeing this crazy field. The other thing I sometimes do is use the Lightning page editor, and I will put it in like a section of the page that only I can see and nobody else. And so that's an option also. Let's refresh this and see if those changes show up. Looks good over here. Looks good over here. Yeah. And then, of course, the best part about all of this is it's in Salesforce, so I can report on it. And I'm decent at Salesforce reports. I'm not going to brag. But if I wanted to run a report on all people who are giving a talk who work at Salesforce and have a certain title, which is something I want to do, this would be an easy way to do it. I can run a report on participants and their sessions, or sessions and participants, filtering on the ones that maybe have a certain title or a certain name. If I want to go to all the talks that Mark Benioff is speaking at, I could do that now. And that's not an option when we go to the Dreamforce website itself. Actually, let's try it out. Maybe it is. I didn't even think to try it. I probably should have said it before. Oh, look at that. Nope, didn't work. So I searched for Mark Benioff, and I'm getting people whose names contain Mark, not just Benioff. Now I could try Benioff, and that probably will work. There we go. And so here's the one. I'm shocked that he's only got. Oh, there we go. There's more. Okay, yeah. I was gonna say I'm shocked if he's only speaking once. So it looks like he's speaking 6 times. So that would work, I guess, if I want to pick by person. I'm just curious now that we have this screen up. So the title that we were looking at before was Senior Product Manager, I think. I'm going to go ahead and search for Senior Product Manager because maybe this would have worked and I just never tried it. No, see that?
Not quite.
No, that's interesting. I wonder what, it's probably treating it as 3 separate words.
Yeah, the same way it found Mark and Marcus.
Yeah, and then if I do, yes, and it doesn't have wildcards or special characters here.
Yeah.
So my hypothesis is still correct. I'm not able to really filter the way I want to, but by bringing this data into a spreadsheet, or even better, into a database, I can do that filtering. Especially if I wanted to do and or anything like that, I could do that too. Now that this is in here, so I'm gonna click on Shane, and I'll show you some other stuff that I brought in here. So just like on the session, I brought in the JSON for the session. When I was going through the list of participants for the session, I split those up into their individual parts and saved a record. And then I saved the JSON for that too. And so here we can see this. And so part of the things that are available publicly from the Dreamforce website is a picture of the speaker. And so I pull that into a field. You can see it down here. This is the photo URL field. And then let's go ahead and edit this object, and I'll show you what I did. I went ahead and created a formula field. So here's the photo URL field, which is the URL that's being hosted by dreamforce.com or the Dreamforce website. And then this photo field is a formula field, and it's just using the image function to display the value of that URL. And I went ahead and said, well, if it's blank, don't display anything. I just put a little if statement there. And so what we're actually doing every time I go to a record is we're pulling, this is actually pulling this image, doing a call, essentially a get, to the Dreamforce website and getting that image. So these images are not in my Salesforce. I didn't fill it up with images. Definitely an option. And again, going back to the concept of scraping websites, it would be a friendlier option, probably, if I'm going to have a lot of people use this app, to pull those images into Salesforce and not look at them over and over. Right now, it's just me using this app. And I honestly am not spending a lot of time looking at people's pictures. So I'm not, grabbing a lot of images from the Dreamforce website and kind of like, causing any issues in terms of server load or anything like that. So I think it's fine. But it is nice sometimes just to see it, especially, again, like, planning ahead. Often when I go to Dreamforce, I run into people. And sometimes I don't remember their names. Sometimes I'm not sure. And so this app, if I have it with me when I'm at Dreamforce, I could pull up a picture of someone, assuming I remember their name or might remember their name. And I would be able to find them and see, is that really, the person? Maybe I remember Shane as his first name and I can't remember his last name. I could search for Shane and then find the picture and then see him. So, there's values to having pictures and stuff like that. And so same thing probably here, I should remove this JSON now that I've worked on this and confirmed that it works and it has everything that I need. The other thing I wanted to just show you while we're here, originally the photo was in the detail section of the page. And what was happening is participant was on the left side, participant name was on the left side, photo was on the right side. And because this photo is about 2 inches tall, the next field, session and company, they were pushed down 2 inches. So there's a big white space, kind of like the white space we have right here, but even bigger, much bigger. And so I was like, well, that doesn't work for me. I don't like a lot of white space. So I moved the photo over to the right-hand side. Let's see what I did there. So what I did is I did edit page. And I put a field section right here on the right-hand side. And then I drag the field over. And so I drag that field over. So here's field section. I just dragged one of those over to here. And then I just dragged the field that I had created called photo into there. And I took it off of the regular page layout. And now the regular page with the details and words are condensed the way I like them to be. And the picture is still on the screen where I can view it. And so it's a little personal preference that I have. I'm going to go ahead and just take off that JSON and clean it up a little. And at this point, I could actually remove the photo URL too, because this is more of all these fields down below were really fields just for my debugging purposes. Long term, I kind of want to create contacts from these participants, because what I actually did for the time being was to have a unique record of each participant for the session. And so Shane may be in here as 4 participants. I don't even know. And that's okay, because I want to know that he's speaking at those talks. But it would be nice to go to a single place, see a record that is for the person, and then have a list of all of the sessions that they're participating in. I didn't quite take it there yet, but I'd like to be able to do that. And so the next logical step for this app is kind of to do that, to create contacts or person accounts or something like that, that link all the participation records into a single contact, and have that related list there. I'm going to click back and I'm going to take a look at the schedule now. So the schedule, I really didn't do too much. I have a start date. I have the big JSON object that represents the schedule. Here's the room, so that's useful. End date, and then I have the capacity. So I need to clean this up. This one definitely is not pretty looking. Let's go ahead and edit the object, and I'll clean up this page layout. And this is something that I think is really important before we ever go live with any app, to kind of come in here and clean things up. There we go. Let's just do that. The other thing is, this is all data that's being brought in via the API, right? Via the scraping. So really, I don't want any of it to be editable. I don't want someone coming in here and changing data that is coming in from an API. Now, I'm an admin, so I can edit it. But ideally, when end users are going to use this app, they don't touch any of this stuff. So I would probably update the field level security. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just do the page layout. Sometimes I do both. It depends on the use case. But this looks a little better now.
Yeah.
And again, I could run a report saying, okay, well, show me everything that's in M South on the 12th. And maybe I just stay there all day, right, in Moscone South, and I don't leave. And I just try to find all the sessions that are in that one building. Oh, this also needs to be cleaned up. Yeah, I can't stand it when we only have one field, right?
Yeah.
So let's see. Well, I could create a view maybe for something that I'm interested in. But let's just go ahead and click the select fields. So the conferences are going to help me. These are all Dreamforce 2023. The level is probably going to help me. The products might help me. Topics even. I don't know about type. But those three tend to be the important ones that I care about. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, and so I might want to run a report on this. There definitely are some products that I'm more interested in than others. Like I said, AI is hot right now. I tend not to go to too many of the introductory sessions. I tend to go to the more advanced ones. I don't know if we can find any advanced ones. Something else that I actually need to fix while we're together. So when I brought in this data, I didn't go through the Dreamforce website and figure out what are all the topics, what are all the levels, and so on and so forth. I just kind of put in one, and then I pulled the data in. And so if we go to the session object, let's go ahead and do it right now, in fact. What's nice is if you don't restrict your pick lists, which, when I started doing this, you couldn't restrict your pick list. There was no option years ago. So I had never done it. Now it's the default pretty much. But if we come here and we look at this product's multi-select pick list, what we'll see is this is the only one that I actually created, Sales Cloud. But when we pulled in all the data, here are all of the ones that came in. Oh, that one I think needs to be fixed. So we'll fix these two. Or there's a couple there that need to be fixed. But what I need to do is actually activate these. And it's important that I do this because if I don't, it's going to be a lot harder to create any formulas or reports or anything that filters on it without activating the values. I could still do contains, but I wouldn't be able to do equals. And so I'm going to go ahead and just activate these. I wish there was a way to mass activate it. I don't think there is. If there is, feel free to leave a comment about the video or write in or whatever people do now. But I'm going to have to activate all these. And then for these here, let me just fix like one of these. I'll show you how to fix it. So it says null Einstein. Obviously, my code had a bug that day. So I just want to make sure there's no other Einstein on here. It doesn't look like there is. Actually do a find. Just the one. Okay. So I'm just going to come here. I'm going to edit it and take away the null. And what's nice is by making this change, not only will I be fixing the value on the screen right now, but any records that had null Einstein will now just have Einstein. And so I don't have to look at the word null, and nobody's going to call me up and saying, hey, did you see that? There is another null Einstein. Oh, shoot. All right. So what I'm going to do now is delete this one and replace it with Einstein. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to delete the bad one. And replace it with just Einstein. This is another reason you can only replace with a value that's been activated. So I need to go and activate all those other ones. Otherwise, I'll never be able to replace them if I want to. But this type of data cleanup is the kind of stuff we would do when we're pulling data from anywhere. Data tends to be messy. And so we want to bring it into Salesforce and then start cleaning it up. Look, I think Sales Cloud is up here already. So I could actually delete this one down here, not have to activate it. And then I'll just replace it with Sales Cloud. Perfect. And so now if we go back to a session and let's just edit one of these and we look at the products, we'll see there's a lot more in there. But I really need to add more, right? I need to activate all of them. I'm not going to spend an hour activating them all with you guys watching. But I do want to activate at least the levels, let's say, and that way I can report on some of those levels. Now what you'll notice for here, my code was even worse. I included the semicolon when I pulled in this data. So what I need to do is, well, first let's see, can I do this? I want to delete the good advanced, and I'll explain why I'm doing it. I was just going to save me a step, and I'll replace it with the bad one, the one that has a semicolon. And I'm going to do the same thing here with intermediate, and I'll replace that one with the bad one. Now, one thing I should note, doing these types of changes are really dangerous because there is no undo. There is no going back. I should ideally do a backup of my data. But since this isn't really my data and I could just scrape it again or parse the JSON again, I'm living on the edge, doing it live, which I would not recommend in the real world. But I'm just, oh, look at that, making changes as we go along. Well, that one already exists. Okay, so let's fix advanced. Save and hit delete.
And if you made these changes and then there was an error of some sort and you re-scraped, would it pull back in those semicolons? So you'd need to change the code before
If I don't update my code, it will pull them back in again, and then we'll have new inactive values down below. Yeah. Right. So ideally, developers and admins work together so that if an admin is going to spend time to clean something up, the developers also spend time to clean up their code and don't just cause the problem to happen all over again, which is something we see all the time, that, a problem gets fixed, but the root cause didn't get fixed. Just the cosmetic issue got fixed. And so then you end up having the same problem all over again, X days later or X hours later. And people are like, I thought you fixed this. And like, well, we did fix it. And then we broke it again. So what I wanted to do is now run a report. So this is the report on all the sessions that I've brought in. And I'm interested in grouping it by level because like I said, I tend to go to the advanced sessions. I'm not saying that those are the only good ones. That definitely some of the other ones are worth attending. And there are many that really the level is not even a thing that matters, right? It's more about the story. But I just want to see here. This can also tell me if maybe I need to scrape the data better, if maybe I didn't do it right. So it looks like there's only 45 advanced ones. And my guess is I probably need to rescrape because some of these 210 didn't get categorized, and we can look at those even. For now, I'm just going to drill down into this and take a look and see, are there any that I want to attend? Let's go ahead and look at this and see. Okay, so we could take away the conference name because at this point, I only have data from one. Let's go ahead and do that. And now we have the session, topics, products, type, roles, length. That sounds pretty good. I'm trying to think, do I want to bring in the abstract? Maybe. I don't really care about the participant count for this purpose. Let's go ahead and save and run. Okay, so now let's take up a little more space. But if we wanted to, we could sort by products maybe. And I could kind of figure out what sessions do I want to attend. So, I mean, I'm interested in a lot of stuff. I'm not going to say I'm not interested in anything here. Like even automotive cloud, I'm interested in, even though I don't work in that industry. But yeah, looking at this, there's pretty much every topic you can think of. And these are, again, the advanced ones, so there's not as many. This one sounds, I was about to say it sounds great, and then I realized, no, it actually sounds terrible, but it sounds really important. It just does not, it's going to be an entertaining hour, right? Here, I'll go ahead and zoom in a little. So that was, oh, I lost it. It was about something for architects.
Architect's approach to something.
Yeah, let's just look for the word approach. Oh, I forgot when. Now that the way reports work now is you can't really search off screen. It only pulls in so much of the data. Here's another one. Like again, this does not sound entertainment at all, but it sounds like something I really should attend. Ooh, and it's a hands-on workshop too. So that sounds really good. Architect data integrity for automations. I would love to know what they're talking about. And so here we can see get hands-on with Salesforce well architected in this interactive workshop. That sounds great. Again, like, it's not going to be a full of laughs. It's not going to be, something where I'm like, at the edge of my seat, about to scream. but it does sound like a great talk. And so what I'm going to do is just open up in another tab this talk and see who's speaking. And so we can see that there's 3 people speaking. Adam, who I know works at Google, used to work at Salesforce. I'm sure this is going to be a great talk. And so, yeah, this might be one that I would want to like heart or star here. I could go ahead and add this as a favorite, right? Just like I could on the Dreamforce website, I could do here. And so I can see it's being offered 2 different days, 2 different times. Hopefully I'll be able to make that one. Let's see if there's any others that look good.
I was
Again,
going to ask about the heart on the Dreamforce site, and if that was passable as an attribute when you scraped, and then you could have a field that like so they came in tagged
yeah.
from.
Yeah, we could. So there's a lot of data in here. If I'm logged in and I take that session when I scrape, I'll actually get a little more data. Right now, when I'm scraping, I'm not logged in. And I did that for on purpose, actually. 2 reasons. One, it's a little easier to scrape generic than to pass in the cookie. And 2, even though we're publishing this video, I really didn't want anyone to know that it was me that was hitting the website and grabbing all this data. I did not do it excessively. I did it as little as possible. But still, it's just, again, it's not necessarily the right thing to do is to, take someone else's data and then build your own app off of it. We're doing it for demonstration purposes and really so I can get more out of attending Dreamforce. So I think that's in the spirit of the law, but technically, from the law itself, so to speak, it's definitely not the thing that you should be doing. Yeah, especially if you're going to try to then make money off of that data. That's totally inappropriate. But yeah, so one of the things that it'll say on here is, and I don't remember the exact attribute, but it will say whether you have put yourself on the list of people attending, or if you've expressed interest in it, that type of thing. I don't think that attribute is showing up right now because, again, I wasn't logged in when I did this. But it would show up, and then I could turn that into something inside Salesforce if I wanted to. Good question.
And then I think the other big upside is that we can add our own fields that aren't part of the Dreamforce proper site.
Yeah.
For instance, if this was exposed to our admins and devs and there was a toggle for that speaker is a client, so I definitely want to go to support our client who's speaking, or if I want to run a report that says, okay, show me all of the sessions that are intermediate in the automotive industry, and then has a client recommend toggle, so I can look through and say, okay, these 6 I would recommend for our automotive clients who are intermediate, and then I can use Mambo Merge to put those into an email template, and then I can help send some get ready for Dreamforce prep to our clients that we know are attending, that has sort of a curated list that I manually went through, but the filter on the report made it so that I wasn't scrolling through 1,900 sessions to find the sweet spot.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I wish that we weren't a couple of days out from Dreamforce, because it would be nice to be able to offer our clients that service. Essentially, tell us what you're interested in, and we'll pick some sessions that we think work for that. Maybe we give extra, and that way they can still choose from the short list. But yeah, if we knew that someone was in the role, let's say they're in a data analyst role, and they work in the automotive field, we would look for all the data analyst sessions and then all the automotive sessions. And maybe we only show the ones that show both, but maybe, we also give extra and say, well, these are ones that apply to each of those, either or some people might like hands-on workshops more than a theater. So if you think about it, we travel all this distance to go to the conference, and then we sit in the back of a room and basically watch what we could have watched on a small screen. And that doesn't really make sense. If we're traveling all that distance, we should try to be as hands-on as possible. We should try to be as interactive as possible. And so the sessions that probably make more sense for a lot of people is to go to the hands-on sessions, the breakout sessions, the ones where it's a smaller group of people. You can actually ask questions and be heard, like a round table, and have some type of collaboration. As opposed to sitting in a room with thousands of people. Yeah, it's nice to hear this famous person give a talk, But really, you're watching something that you could be anywhere in the world. You could be watching on any screen. It doesn't make too much of a difference that you happen to be live. And so you could filter all that stuff out. And yeah, that'd be great if we offer that to our clients. If anyone watching is interested in that, let us know. Because now that we have the app, we can do this for any conference, really, not just Dreamforce, but any conference, even the community conferences. So there's a lot more I still want to do with this. I want to do the dedupe. I want to convert the participants into contacts. I think I want to also roll up some information. So like, for instance, here I can see that Rob from Revenue Grid is giving a talk. I don't know Rob, but I know some other people at Revenue Grid. And so I may want to roll that up onto the session itself. The fact that it's a partner session, or maybe even it's a partner that I know people at. And then I could click here and see more information about that person. And I may want to also even reach out. I've had a lot of luck from a sales perspective when I email somebody saying, oh, I saw that you're speaking at Dreamforce. I'll try to attend, and I'd love to be able to meet you afterwards. People are often really, they feel good about the fact that they have a fan who's following them. And so when I mention something timely like that they're giving a talk, it's a great way to kind of get that introduction that I wouldn't be able to get from just a cold call or a cold email.
Yeah. And even from a non-sales perspective, but just Salesforce community perspective, if you had a toggle on the sessions for like attended and maybe a notes or compliments, then I can click into Rob as speaker and then click into his LinkedIn and quickly send him a message that says, hey, I went to that session. Here's the thing that I remember liking about it. Because I know we gave that session at Dreamforce, and then it was fun being at the Slack booth and having somebody come up and be like, I saw your session. That was really good. So just a compliment machine could be built on this app too.
Yeah. And if we were sending a lot of people to Dreamforce with the goal of accomplishing something, we could do assignments. Yeah. So Salesforce gives away the Trailhead Tracker app, which is a great app. I love it. We're not affiliated with it, but I still love it. But it allows you to basically have all the badges in Trailhead listed within your Salesforce as custom objects. And then you can actually assign badges to your Salesforce users. So I can say, hey, Chris, I want you to take this particular badge, and you give a due date even. And you get all the data about, the themes of the badges and the difficulty and all that stuff, just kind of like this here. And so if we were trying to maximize our efficiency at Dreamforce, we could kind of do assignments where I say, okay, I'm going to attend this talk at this time. Chris, you attend a different talk at the same time. And that way we're not in the same room at the same time. We both take notes and we can just share each other's notes. And so we could really maximize making sure that we're using that short window of 3.5 days, if even that much, to get as much out of it as possible by having like an assignment or ownership or something like that. On the records. So we probably should do that at some point. And then the other thing that really is interesting, if we go back to the report maybe, is trying to figure out, well, what are the common themes that are important this year? Because if it's important to Salesforce, maybe it should be important to us, right? So if everyone is talking about AI, well, maybe we should be working on stuff related to AI, and not, whatever it is that we're working on, making videos about Dreamforce. And so, it at least tells you the things that you should be, learning about, because it's going to impact you one way or the other. There we go. And then, if I ever want to give a talk, knowing that there's a lot of content about AI, let's just say, so I should probably give talks about AI then if I want to try to get that talk accepted. There's a lot of interesting data that's available. and it's really not a lot. If we look at the top we see here, it's about, let's say 1,400 records, and there might be some duplicates here. So that's really not a lot of data. It's an amount that I would say is human ingestible. So a person could work with this amount of data. We're not talking about millions. And so as a person, I could probably narrow this down and then come up with a short list and, gain some insight.
Yeah. And I think the other benefit that you sort of alluded to is that the Dreamforce website might not be there in 3 months, but this data will be. So if I'm planning a community event in June of next year and it's February and I'm trying to get speakers, it's helpful to be able to say, oh, let me look through who spoke at Dreamforce and see if I have anybody on my attendee list or anybody in my region or a session that I thought was interesting that I could say, oh, I'd love you to come give that in Tahoe or at Cactus Force or wherever. So, sort of
Yeah,
not being reliant on dreamforce.com, because it will eventually be Dreamforce 2024 information on that site. And you'll go, oh, I lost everything.
right. Yeah. And I even often I'll remember something I learned years ago. I sat in a talk and I learned this little tidbit, and I cannot remember the name of the talk. I can't remember who gave the talk. I just remember there was something really cool about it.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I could keep a journal. I could, have a calendar. I could do all sorts of stuff. But if I had this app and I had marked down, I went to that talk, and even maybe some feedback. I liked it. Here's my notes. Things like that. That would be really useful. Again, years from now, or just even next year, knowing I went to this talk. It was a great talk. Then I could do some research on myself. Okay, what types of talks do I tend to get stuff out of? I tend to get things out of ones that are smaller rooms. I tend to get things out of ones that maybe have a Salesforce employee at it, and so on and so forth. And each person's going to be different, but you could at least, do that research to make the most out of the investment of going to Dreamforce, because it really is an investment.
Yeah.
Besides the ticket price, you have the travel costs, you have the fact that you're away from work for about a week, and then afterwards the recovery time. So
The
you
wear and tear on your shoes.
yeah, no kidding. Yeah, bags break,
Yeah.
people lose cords. It's a rough week for a lot of people. So you want to maximize the value from going. And if you think about what do we all have in common, those of us that are attending Dreamforce, is that we tend to be database people. And so this is like a natural kind of progression that I'm surprised more people aren't doing. In fact, I'm kind of surprised that Salesforce doesn't offer it.
Yeah.
It's great that there's a website. I love the fact that there's a website and that the website has all this functionality in it. Of course, we have to have that. But it really kind of makes sense, especially since Salesforce is an API first company, right? Service oriented architecture, all that stuff. There should be an API, and let us build any apps we want. You could build a lot of cool apps. If you think about the world of dating apps out there, and I'm not saying that we should make this a dating app, but even being able to find a friend. So if I'm at a session, knowing that I have a friend in the same session, so I could sit next to them would be great. Or they're one room over, right? That would be great too. I've spent most of not most, I spent a lot of time, not most, but a lot of time in the last 7 days or so trying to coordinate with my friends and people I know, saying, when are you free? When can we meet up? Et cetera, et cetera. Being able to share my agenda with them would be useful. I can't necessarily share my entire calendar with them because it's a lot of people for it to share. But saying, here's my Dreamforce agenda, and maybe even pull in some of the non-official events that are done by partners after hours and stuff into that agenda too. And then I could just share with a friend, say, well, when are we going to be roughly in the same place? When are we both going to be on the third floor of Moscone West? Because we could just meet up then. Or are we both going to the Salesforce Ben event, one night? We can meet up then. That would make it so much easier to see people at Dreamforce instead of the back and forth trying to figure it out, which never works. An API I think is going to be on my wish list. I'm going to provide feedback this year and say, I love the website. Thank you for doing it and for having the filters and all this other stuff. But let's put an API in front of it and let all the partners and developers and low code and no code experts out there come up with ways to do even more with it.
Yeah. Because it would also be cool if it said, oh, we noticed that you and this stranger are attending 4 of the same sessions. You probably have a
Right.
lot in common in your role
Yeah.
and in your experience, and maybe that would be a good connection.
Right. Suggest the networking opportunity. Right.
Yeah.
Especially if I say I'm interested in meeting other people who are attending the same sessions.
Yeah.
The rooms are big. I'm not going to memorize everyone in the room and realize that we were in the same ones and then
Right.
have the courage to go up to the person and introduce myself.
Yeah.
But an app could totally facilitate that. And that would be a great feature. That's one of the things I get most out of the conferences is the networking and meeting people who, despite coming from a totally different part of the world and maybe speaking different language, different religion, different everything, we have a lot in common. And I always think that it's just like, what are the odds mathematically? But yeah, an API could help us build that app. And then we'd be able to network with all sorts of new people.
Yeah. Well, cool. Thank you, Matt, both for building that and for walking us through it today.
Yeah, of course. My pleasure.
And thank you, folks, for watching. As always, please be sure to like and subscribe, comment if there are sessions that you are interested in us covering as we cover Dreamforce next week or in attending, and to do recaps of. And if you have any ideas for functionality that could be built out as we continue this, I guess we call it an experiment and not a
Yeah.
project since it's,
I welcome the challenge.
yeah,
So if anyone has some great ideas that they'd like to see built, send them our way. Really, it's not a money building opportunity. Really, and we're not doing it for that purpose. But I would love to come up with ways to use this data to help the entire ecosystem get more out of, like I said, the 3.5 days at most of Dreamforce.
yeah. And the other community conferences too,
Yeah,
because those are the situations where they will have a website, but they don't necessarily, I mean, they definitely don't have the resources that Salesforce does to build a complex agenda builder and scheduler. And so it's like, yeah,
right.
this could be tremendously helpful on that level.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you, Matt. Thank you, folks, for watching. We will see you at Dreamforce and right here when we do the next one of these sessions. Bye.
I